Hi, I'm Robin. I'm the Generous Stitcher, and I have recorded a couple video attempts for Flosstube before, and you know, the air conditioner was too loud, or the even weave kept slipping off my lap. I did record a video a week ago, and I'm gonna probably splice some of it into this video because there were some kind of funny pictures of my cats. And at one point I had to call out to my husband and ask for a cat extraction. That's when the cats are getting into something and they're causing mischief, and there's going to be chaos or a horrible accident if they aren't extracted out of the play that they're doing. So you might see some pictures of, and I took some video of the two of them before I started, so I'm going to be splicing some of that in, and we'll see how they, whether they join us at some point during this video. So the other reason I wanted to redo the video that I did was that it was an hour and 17 minutes long, and that was like 17 more minutes than I wanted to talk. So I realized, oh gosh, I nattered on. And also sometimes I'll talk with my hands a little bit. So I was sort of talking with my hands like underneath the document camera, and that was not useful. And it probably would have given people like some vertigo or something. So I'm kind of redoing this one. This is my first Flosstube. And like I say, I'm Robin the Generous Stitcher. And I'll explain that name, and it'll become more obvious throughout the video. And so this is my origin story, where I'm going to talk about the crafting that I've done throughout my life. And I'm going to be showing my whips because that was something in the first video that I didn't do as much as I should have. And show a couple finishes. And so that's kind of what I'm going to try to focus on and get done in an hour. So I know if people like to have floss tubes where they can just, listen to the floss tube and stitch, and that's great. But as a new floss tube person, new to floss tube, it always kind of intimidated me when I saw a person with a floss tube that was like 2 or 3 hours, because I just don't have that much time in my schedule to like sit down and commit to watching. Plus, I love to watch the floss tube, so I don't want to do my stitching when I'm watching a floss tube. I want to see what people are doing and, feel like I want to, I know I can't make eye contact with the floss tuber, but I feel like I can, see them and watch them and, have some kind of vicarious engagement. So I'd like to keep my floss tubes short. Also, I still am working, and I want to probably only do about one floss tube a month. And I'll kind of explain my stitching schedule too during this video. So I wanted to start with some of the crafting that I was exposed to throughout my life, especially as a child. And so I have here under the document camera some crocheting that my grandmother did. And this is great if you're an Oregon Duck fan. I guess Green Bay Packers are also these colors. I'm not from the Midwest, so I'm making a guess there. So anyway, I'm going to go through them, find a place to stick them before I have other things arranged. So it's like, okay, I just throw them over there. So, and then this one here, unfortunately, it looks really like this nice china blue here, but in real life, this is actually a turquoise and much greener in real life. And so this was another piece. It's slightly starched, and at various times I have kept this on the antique pump organ with like a vase or something on it. So, and then this one is another one I've also like put on the antique pump organ at times and had something on it. This one looks a little bit more coral pink in the camera, but it's more of a darker rose pink. So I'm just trying to tell you the real versus projected colors, so you'll know when you see things that there's going to maybe be a teeny bit of distortion with some colors. And then this is my favorite one that my grandmother did, and these are pansies, and pansies are my favorite flower. And then you can see there's a nice design in the middle of this one. So this is the one piece where I look at it and think, if I ever wanted to crochet, that's what I would want to do, is make pansies. But the only crocheting I did was in middle school, and I would make these like square pot holder things that were not as fancy, and using like acrylic purple yarn. So so that's some of the things that I grew up with, and trying to remember my order here. And so my grandmother, she did crocheting, she did beading, she did quilting. She probably sewed a bit, although I can't recall what she might have sewed. I have a number of her afghans and quilts at home, and Max, our 9-month, 10-pound kitten, has decided that one of her afghans is his favorite thing to snuggle on the couch. And then I also have where when I grew up, I lived in a small town, and I'm a 5th generation Oregonian, and my dad's family had pioneered that county in that area. And so I had tons of relatives all around. Next door, my parents rented their house from my great-grandmother, my grandmother, her mother, and my dad's maternal grandmother. And so we were very close-knit, very tight. And my great-grandmother also quilted, and I have 2 quilts that she helped hand quilt with my mom. And so, yeah, my great-grandmother also did embroidery. And unfortunately, I always loved embroidery as a kid. I never did it, but I always thought, I want to learn to do that. I want to do that, because it was just, you know, something that I was drawn to. And so about the time that I got to be older, my great-grandmother, who passed when I was in middle school, you know, she would have been the one who would have taught me, but that was when her health was starting to decline, was the time that I was getting old enough to probably start learning that. So we never got a chance for her to pass that on to me. But my grandmother's sisters, they also sewed and they quilted, and my Aunt Dee Dee did this painting, and she painted it from a photograph. So besides doing crafting, my Aunt Dee Dee also did painting. And then my Auntie Lou, the older of the 3 sisters, my Aunt Dee Dee was the youngest, my grandma was the middle. My Auntie Lou did painting, and, you know, several people who are artists have looked at it and go, oh yeah, that's so period from like the 60s and 70s, you know, but I still love it. And this painting has kind of a funny family story. My grandmother, her favorite color was blue. Everything had to be blue. I have a blue chair, but I do not like the color blue. I'm wearing a purple shirt with a burgundy blazer, and those are colors that I like a lot better than blue. But my grandmother, when my grandfather retired, they had a double wide that they put in a trailer park, and she did her whole house in blue. And I have her couch, which is like blue cabbage roses from the 60s, and it's like a 7-foot-long couch. They don't make them like that anymore. So she asked Auntie Lou to paint her a painting that would be like the centerpiece of her blue of her blue living room. And you can see in this is not blue, this is green. And my grandmother hated this painting. It just irritated her. And so I didn't know that when I was a kid, but I learned it later as an adult. But, you know, I always liked it, and it's ginormous. It covers you can't see really its dimensions here, but it covers the wall that is in a short hallway between the living room and the kitchen in my house. So, you know, it. And I have an even larger painting that a cousin of theirs painted, but and I in the video that I made of my cats, there you'll see the edge, the bottom of it with the frame, but I'm not going to show that on YouTube at this time. But you know, my dad also did a lot of woodworking, and he drew and painted a teeny bit when he was younger, and so he was super creative and would engineer things for fun and for his job. He made some Adirondack chairs. At one time he made a chair that folded up, and he made a table that folded up. I still have the table. Trying to think if I have the chair. I don't think I do anymore. But so yeah, so very creative people. I mean, these are people who, you know, were raised by my parents who were born in the Depression, and my aunts and uncle and great aunts, great uncles, and grandma were born, you know, about 20 years before that. Well, a little bit longer than that, 25 years before that, like in the early, like 1909. And so their parents were the children of Oregon pioneers, and or had come over themselves as children on the Oregon Trail later. So that's my dad's family, and my mom was from a farming family in Illinois, and her grandparents came to my hometown in Oregon because I think they kind of, I'm not sure how they retired. They didn't retire from farming, but they decided to come from Illinois to Oregon and grow strawberries and hay and a couple other things. And so that's how my parents met, as my dad was baling hay for my other set of great-grandparents, and my mom was a couple years younger, and she saw him and was like, that's the man I'm going to marry. And then a couple years later, he noticed her. He said, whoa, who is that girl? And so, you know, they started dating, and, you know, they've been together since 1957. So anyway, so I don't want to show the cross stitch quite yet. Trying to think if there was anything else I was going to show. So the other thing, oh, yes, I will be right back, and Willow's going to entertain you now. So, hi, Willow. You just can't sit on the keyboard, sweetie. Hi, baby. I can hold you a little bit. Yeah. So, you already got your snack. You probably just want attention. Come here. Maybe, maybe not. So this is Willow. We adopted her on Juneteenth this last year, and with one of her kittens from the shelter. And she is a Siamese mix, and she's now she's about almost 2 years old, I think. I haven't done the math on her to figure out when her birthday is. Max is her 10-pound, 9-month-old kitten, and so he may or may not join us too. She's sniffing the crochet pieces. So this is a ceramic piece that I did for Auntie Lou when I was a kid. Auntie Lou had very unique design tastes, and her house was brown, gold, and white. And all of my other relatives are like, you know, they love blue. So if it wasn't blue, it's ugly, and that's not my house either. So, but anyway, there was a lady who had a ceramic shop out in the country near where we lived, and we would go out once a week, and we would have little tools. We would pick a unfired ceramic piece off the shelf. People do this now in cities. There's like franchises that offer this crafting, and we'd take our little metal tools and we'd scrape all the little um, mold marks off the piece until it was smooth, and then we would. I hope that's not too loud. Oh, I think the HOA put a newspaper through my mail slot, and Willow, I think, used to be a Jack Russell Terrier in a previous life, because she has to go like jump up on the table by where the mail slot is and like sniff the mail. And if she had more teeth, or longer teeth, she'd probably grab it and shake it and then bring it to me. But so anyway, so I made this for Auntie Lou to go with her white decor in her house. I also made her a few other pieces that were white. This is the one piece that I got when she downsized her house. So anyway, so that's some of the things we did. It was the 70s, so we did ceramics, we did latch hook, we did decoupage, we made those macrame plant hangers. There were these tri-lobed plastic beads that we would do beading with. I have no idea what they're called. If somebody knows what those things are called, I might show a piece at some point that my grandmother made with those that I have, because they were fun. But we were making all sorts of like bracelets and necklaces and stuff with that. So anyway, when I was a kid, there was lots of crafting in my life. My mom sewed, and she hand quilts even today, and she's, still going strong with quilting. I thought she was going to slow down a year or two ago, but no, she's not. She's still doing her quilting, and she doesn't sew quite so much anymore. She does simple things. I'm going to show one thing she did for me. Well, did she do it? She did it, and then I came over to visit her, and she goes, "Oh, you should take this," and gave me something. So I was like, okay, because it was a cool thing. So, yeah, so lots of crafts and arts that we were doing in the 70s, and I didn't really want, with my mom, okay, my mom and my sister have ADD, I don't, and our personalities, mom and my sister, are much more alike more alike with each other than they were with me, so, we didn't always get along so well. I'm doing this thing with my hands, and the the document camera's reacting, so I'm gonna try and hold them still for a minute. So my mom tried to teach me to sew, or she tried to have me take home ec, or I tried to take home ec in high school, and it didn't work out at all. It was very bad. So there have been times that I've thought that I would maybe like to try some sewing things at some point. And my mother-in-law gave me her mother's sewing machine, which is, well, technically vintage, but I mean, everything works, and it does all sorts of things like serging and embroidery and quilting, and it, according to my mother-in-law, it does everything. But it has these metal discs, and so you put the metal discs in the machine, and then it changes function. So I have all the instructions and guidebooks for it. So maybe someday. I'm drawn to like more abstract quilting, and there are things that I would like to do with that. And so Anyway, there's some other things I'll show as we go through Flosstube, not this video, but other Flosstubes that I'm planning, where I'll show you some of the other things that people have made in my family. So let's get on to the cross stitch, because I know that's why you're here. And so because it's my origin story, I'm going to talk about the cross stitch that I have done. And wow, there's really not that much glare on this. Let me see if I can twist it. Let's try that way. Yeah, kind of twisted. Move it a little bit more center. Oh, good. The last time I filmed, I have a 70s chandelier right above my head that has a weird trumpet-like light that shines directly down on the table, so I guess people could see what they were eating. Our house was built in 1976, so it still has a lot of original features, and we don't plan on updating it. A, we couldn't afford it, and B, the things are beautiful, they work fine, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it, okay? And my husband and I both like vintage things, and when we got together, there's quite a bit an age difference between us. We both loved silent film, and it was like, okay, we both love silent film. His favorite director of the silence is my favorite director of the silence, so it's like, okay, there's something here. And it was. So anyway, so I didn't like quilting because I poked my fingers and drew blood. I didn't like sewing because my mom and I just could not, I could not get instruction from her for a variety of reasons. And I wasn't a tomboy, but I didn't want to do like women's things. I wanted to go into the military. I wanted to go get some science degrees, which I ended up, doing those. And so, and I have 3 advanced degrees in science. My PhD is coronavirus genetics. I don't work in science anymore. I taught science for a very brief time, but I did public health work, and I work for a state agency and work with education data. So I've used my science skills, but I never wanted to have a traditional get married, have kids kind of life. And so I didn't. And some of this stuff, the crafting and some of the quilting and the sewing was things that I just didn't want to do. And as I got older, I always loved embroidery, and I would buy embroidery pieces. And I just decided when I moved back to Oregon after being away for a good long time that I needed to teach myself embroidery. And I was like, cross stitch, it's just making the little X's. How hard is that? So I said, well, I'm going to do a cross stitch piece, and I'm going to do a secret cross stitch piece. I'm not going to tell anybody about what I'm doing. I'm going to do this piece for my sister for Christmas. And of course, I bought the piece like right around November 1st, thinking that I'd have it done by Christmas. And that was in November 1998, so just over 25 years ago that I taught myself how to do cross stitch. This is from a kit. I have seen this kit by Dimensions. I have also seen this particular pattern that looks like it's bootlegged or plagiarized online. And this was a Jan Lin kit. Now, after I did it, years later, I pulled the pattern out, what was left of the kit, the pattern, and I think I, Goodwilled it. Which, I feel like, gosh, I mean, the red in the Santa hat is not as faded. That's sort of the issue with the light and the brightness, which I might be able to might, I don't know if I can change the light and not mess up the video. So I will get better at this. But anyway, this is a snowman and it's on blue 14 count Aida. And I told this story to several people about this was my first cross stitch. I taught myself how to cross stitch from a kit, and it was on navy Aida. And people were like, "Are you insane? You still cross stitch now?" So everyone was like, they couldn't believe that I was doing this. And you'll see that I even did French knots, which I rarely do French knots. And I have a finish that I've got to add about 9 French knots to, and I have to watch a video. And the person I was gonna give, that I'm giving the gift to, they were actually giving me tips on how to do the French knots on that fabric. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think I know that. I've done this before, but it's been so many years. I was really appreciative that they were giving me hints. Anyway, and besides navy Aida, and I've done, you'll see a black Aida thing in a minute. I don't mind the navy or the black Aida. Okay, that doesn't really bother me, especially when you're doing it with white or, there's a contrast. And, and I did this back when I was 35. So, my eyes were not quite as bad as they are now. But you might see that it kind of sparkles a little bit. That's Kreinik, okay? So if Kreinik couldn't beat me, if navy Aida couldn't beat me, I was going to continue and teach myself how to do this. And I thought to myself, oh, in a couple of years, I'll just move on to do something else. So I bought like a crewel kit, and I bought some needlepoint kits. I think at one point my relatives were doing needlepoints, and I did a couple stitches of needlepoint with them. Anyway, so I'm looking at the back stitching on this piece, and it's too bad that this is faded a bit, but these are all like little bright red back stitching on this scarf for the fringe of the scarf. And I hadn't seen this piece for, gosh, at least 20 years. I mean, my sister, this is part of her Christmas decorations. She really liked snowmen. And so I was going to do some snowman pieces for her for Christmas presents. But I don't go to her house for Christmas very often, especially since I got married. Have spent more time with my in-laws. And so I hadn't looked at this in 20 years, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I did such a better job with this than I ever would have expected. I mean, with the back stitching and the French knots and just, how complicated it was. And so, I just was like, wow. And then I'm looking at it going, this design wasn't as hokey as I remembered. I really should have saved that pattern, So anyway, and I think, down at the bottom here, there's a little sprig of berries, and that's red French knots. So, and then down below, I don't know how well you can see the sparkle is showing up, but there's little sparkle of Kreinik down in the snow, as well as in the stars. So this was the first piece I did. I started it in November of 1998, and I finished it in May of 1999. And I got my sister something else for Christmas of 98, and I didn't tell her, but at one point, like maybe in March or something, I told my mom that, by the way, Mom, I'm doing cross stitch, and I don't know how to do these French knots, or, the drawing is confusing. And I'm left-handed and my mom's right-handed. So whenever she would teach me something as a kid, she would get in front of me and we'd do kind of a mirror image. And so that was how she dealt with teaching somebody who's left-handed. So my mom of course, was like, oh my gosh, why did you pick something so hard? And kind of berated me for it, which is why I didn't tell her in the first place or tell my other family members, because I was kind of not wanting that reaction. But, you know, she got over it. And then she told me, well, I do cross stitch. And she'd kind of done it for a while and then kind of got out of it and didn't do it anymore. And she has given me a piece of cross stitch that I have on my wall, and I will show it in another video. But anyway, so she helped me with the French knots, and then my sister got a very, very like unexpected and special cross stitch piece for Christmas '99. So meanwhile, when I finished that piece, I went to, was bought at Michael's for $9.99. This is a Dimension Gold Petites, and again, I think it's on probably 14 count Ada. My sister could not find the piece. We looked. She had not put it back in the Christmas box with the other pieces. So she couldn't find it. It had been shoved in a drawer in her house somewhere, and you know, it'll turn up. But this was a piece that I liked, that was more my taste at the time, and it has a snowman in it, so that's why I did it. And I did not mat it. And by the way, I was the person who put this snowman in this frame. It was just a frame off the shelf, and what turned out really nice, it's sort of a green frame, green and gold, and then it has these I'm gonna see, oh, it's over there. Okay, it has these you'll see these sort of ivy and berries, kind of like holly and ivy, or holly and berries. So it even though it was not like marketed as Christmas, it fit. And then also I realized the back is coming off, so I'm gonna have to help my sister fix that, or I know a finisher or two, and I might have them help me. So this was called the Sleigh Ride, and I put it in a gold frame, like a metallic gold frame, and so that was her Christmas present for '99. This would have been 2000, and this was copyright of '98 from Dimensions. And then this was the third and final snowman I made for her, because after a while she got tired of getting snowman, and I wanted to do other pieces. So this was a snowman and it's also from Jan Lynn. It was a kit on black Ada with a lot of gold, sort of metallic threads. I don't remember if that was Kreinik or just some kind of metallic thread that was in the kit, but here is the piece with its frame, and I'll get it centered a bit more. So above my bed, where no one can see, my guardian angel watches over me, and it's got a little pink cheek of the snowman. And you know, this was a piece that by the time I had done those two other pieces, it took me months and months. When I saw this one, I was like, okay, this one's not going to take me that long. So, and it didn't. And this one, I was looking at the copyright date, and this one, I believe, 2002. So this would have been a present for her in Christmas of 2002. I believe. So, all right, so it's my dining room table. And then a few years after, like a number of years after I did the cross stitch pieces, my sister, and I'm still doing cross stitch, and my sister decided that she wanted to do cross stitch. And I guess I'll hold this one up. So, I guess it would help if you, oh yeah, that is the front. It's just the glare, it's kind of, so there's the full piece. And again, she didn't tell anybody, or my mom did not berate her, although I kind of said, why did you pick something so hard? And again, this has, I'll let it refocus, this has some Krynic in it, in the snow, and then there's a deer in the background, and then it's got these long winter trees that are either a silhouette in the background or this this tree here. And so, and although this piece is mostly full coverage, at the top it's sort of you know, kind of fades away, and at the bottom you have snow drifts, but then you have like unstitched area here. And so I think my sister started in this corner with this piece, or maybe this piece, which is just unfinished, or just stitching in between unstitched fabric. And it's on, I do not know the count of this. I think it's 14. And I don't know the name of this fabric. It's kind of an Aida with you know, kind of, you can see it's variegated, kind of you know, off-white and kind of tan in it. And so I think she started over here, and she frogged it 3 times and then gave up. And you know, and I was like, you know, this is a piece that begs for you to start in the middle. And I, at the time, you know, I don't remember when she tried doing this. It was, gosh, before I got married, which was 11 years ago. So, you know, I'd probably been stitching at least 10 years when she decided that she was going to try to cross stitch. But it just, that was not her thing. And she does paper crafts a little bit, but which would not be my thing, because if it's using scissors, I don't really want to do it. And so, but anyway, you know, she confided in me that she tried to do this, and it wasn't going to happen. And I said, would you like me to finish it for you? And I said, however, I've got several things in the rotation, and so it will be at least a year before I can get to it. And she was okay with that. So so I ended up doing this piece. And there is a little spot, and I don't know where it is. I'm not going to point it out. Like down here at the bottom somewhere, where the stitches are going, where the X's are crossed in one direction, and the rest of the piece is in another direction. Because I'm left-handed, so I cross my X's a little different than other people cross their X's. Or, you know, I've seen left-handed and right-handed crosses in terms of how people do it. And so I just left hers in, her stitches, because A, nobody's going to pay attention. She's not going to pay attention. And if someone was to pay attention, well, it makes a good story. So, anyway, you know, not exactly my taste, but I'm going to use these trees in a piece that I'm working on, because now I think it's time I can get into the reason why my name is going to be the Generous Stitcher. And that is, the first 3 things that I made are gifts. And that's what I stitch, is I stitch gifts. This is, now it's time to rotate it back. Excuse me, before I find the mouse and get it back up see if, oops, come on. Oh, oh, great. Well, the rotation, the computer is kind of deciding not to. Gosh, I hope I didn't. Oh, yeah, good. It's still recording. For some reason, all my camera controls went away there, and oh boy, that's fun. Okay. My husband's like, you really ought to learn how to do your. You really ought to learn how to do the camera, and I think probably I should. Oh, that's better. Let me go back to rotating. Yeah, okay. Let's do that. Sorry about the, it's a, I'm learning. So anyway, so the thing is that I have always stitched gifts. And I have about 4 pieces of cross stitch on my walls. And 3 of those pieces were gifts to me. And one of those, and the other remaining piece is a piece that I bought at a resale shop to benefit a feral cat colony, and it is a kitten sitting in a squash and pumpkin patch, and which would be great if I, but I don't have that pattern, but it was cute. And so anyway, so this was a gift I made during the pandemic. We're kind of like, was it lockdown? Yeah, kind of lockdown, kind of after lockdown. And I'm going to show this piece in particular in another Flosstube, but it does have beads in it, and I have a couple photos where I took close-ups of when I was doing this, showing some of the beading and showing the stitching. So this was a wedding gift for my colleague, and so yeah, so people get married, people have babies, Christmas happens, birthday happens, and I have just done I've just done gifts, and I haven't done that many things for me. And so and I also want to say, if I can show this on the camera, let me get the right hand with the right, okay. Okay, this is the white dresser. That's the craft dresser. And sorry for the wobble. I think what I will do is, import this photo into my computer and then show it as part of my video openings or something. But that's what I try to keep all of my crafting stuff in. And for a long time, it had my floss, it had any fabrics I had, it had all my patterns. It had, where did I put that? It had, I'm a bobbinator for my DMC, so it had my 3 DMC boxes. And now it does not have my DMC boxes, but it has all my DMC extra skeins, and it has all of my other flosses that I'm not using in a kit, kitted up in something. And it has almost all of my patterns. I have a couple patterns I sort of lost in a room because when we moved in here, we haven't really unpacked stuff, and then I have cats, so I have to kind of keep things like contained, or the cats, everything in my house is a cat toy with a 9-month-old 10-pound kitten and his mom, who's just as active as he is. And so yeah, I've got 2 patterns that I got last year, and I don't know where I put them. But anyway, so I'm going to show the whips I'm going to show my 2 finishes that I had in the last couple weeks. And I am a slow stitcher. I don't get to stitch very much during the week. I also read, so I have like 3 book groups I go to, so some of my time is spent reading. But I have, ooh, where did I put that? Darn. I wanted to show, well, I will show that, I will show the pattern. I had that in my other video, but I'm going to show it in a different floss tube because I'm going to revisit this. So what I have done for wedding gifts, and I did something different with Ryan's wedding gift, because Ryan's wedding gift is a monarch butterfly, and that's because his wife, her family is from a village in Mexico close to where the monarchs overwinter. And so, you know, he's from Oregon, she's from Oregon, and so I wanted to do something that meant something for them. And also he's from OSU, so the black and the orange are good for him. And so, anyway, so I wanted to do something that wasn't just Oregon grape. And so what I do a lot of times for married couples is I will do, if they're from two different states, I'll do the state flower for one of them and the state flower for the other one. So this is a finish that I had this month, and I don't know why the camera keeps going in and out, but I'll hold still. So it's a Oregon grape, and then this other flower is mistletoe, which is Oklahoma's state flower. So the Oklahoma has, you can kind of see there's some stitches in an off-white, and so where sort of this off-white is, there will be French knots, which are in a different shade of green than some of the other greens in this pattern. And I really like the Oklahoma. I mean, when I saw it, I saw like mistletoe. Mistletoe in Oregon is kind of like you know, like this olive green, and it's really blah. It's like only one color. And so, but someone was telling me, oh no, there's a lot of different subspecies of mistletoe in North America. I don't know if they're native to North America, because you know, the mistletoe I think that grows in Oregon is not from Oregon, but I could be mistaken. If you know, you can put it in the comment. But anyway, like I say, this one is like about 9 French knots away from being done, and I'm gonna get it done this week because I'm just gonna have to sit down and watch some videos and then do it. So, because I'm the person who's getting this, I spoke to her last week at a mini retreat, and then I'm gonna Zoom stitch with her on Saturday. So I want to get it done so I can say it's done, and then make a plan to meet up with her in person. I was hoping I would have the French knots done by the mini retreat because I knew she was going to be at that. But anyway, so yeah, so I hardly ever stitch stuff that's for me. And so my whips are usually 20 plus years old. And I have a list of my whips and when I started doing them. And I'm going to go through them, not necessarily in any chronological order. I do have 2 whips that I'm not going to show. One is a Teresa Wentzler Dragon and Castle that I have about 40%, 50% completed, that I was stitching for a friend that I was really good friends with around 2000, 2001 when I started stitching it, and then we lost touch. So maybe someday I'll finish that. But I'm not going to show that one. That would be, I might even have it in that box I was going to open up. And then I have another one that's the Tiny Modernist that I started in 2022. So for me, I have always been like gifting people cross stitch, but I never had crafty friends. And so around 2018, some people at work were like, hey, Robin does crafting because we see her doing cross stitch at lunch. So some people at my work came to me and said, hey, would you like to do crafts with us during lunchtime? once a month. And I was like, I would love that. And so my friend who started this group, has a master's of fine arts in ceramics. She has a kiln at her farm. She grows sheep, and I know she has some merino wool sheep, but she also might have some, like one other kind I don't remember. And she knits, and she teaches embroidery for 4-H, and so I can't think of a craft that she hasn't done, or at least put her hand to once. And she goes to craft fairs. So that's how I got starting to actually craft with other people. And I was gonna just show one more thing. So I have, like, say, 4 cross stitches on the walls, but I also occasionally will see something that I fall in love with. And this is actually like each state and a flower, some of which are the state flowers. The state flower leisure arts pattern book that I use for my fingertip towels does not necessarily have a state flower. I mean, there are places that have state flowers, like California, and I believe it's hard to see with that white. I think this is a columbine, which I think is Colorado. But not every state is in that state pattern book. So I found this at like a secondhand or an antique place. It's not antique, but I really loved it because it's just like, it is colorful, and I love color. And so, yeah, so, yeah. So anyway, so that's some cross stitch that I've bought for myself that I liked. So let's talk about, let's go through some of my whips. And I'm going to start with the oldest whip I've got. And this may be something that I will have to hold up, and then I will also put it under the document camera. This is from Raspberry Patch Design Studio. And, okay, now I'm going to have to, let's see. Okay, that works. So this is Aunt Mabel, who is me, because I started doing this back in 2003, and I thought I was going to do it for my sister. So the one in the center, oh boy, I'm reaching my limits of stretching. I'm only 5'2", so I don't have, I'm long-limbed for my body, but that still means that I have some limits. So there are 2 snowmen in the center here. I'm sorry they're not exactly in the center. The snowman with the lamppost and the female snow person next to him, that was supposed to be my brother-in-law and my sister. And then my sister has 5 children, so we have, like, down in the corner with a pink stocking cap, I can see one, are my 2 older nieces. And then, let's put these under the document camera. Oh, sorry. This are my older nieces. I'm going to play around with that rotate. So, okay, yeah, great. So that's my older nieces, and my brother-in-law, my sister, and that was actually the name of this pattern from One Snowman's Family, which is the series. This was actually called Mama. And then this was Grandma, that's my mom. And this string here is a broom handle that is going to be attached to a button, which is the the broom part of a I don't know what the formal name of is, the bottom of the broom, like the part that actually sweeps. So maybe it is the broom. I don't know. But anyway, that's a button. And when I got this back in 2003, 2004, I got all the buttons. So these are my two nephews and my youngest niece. And my youngest niece now is, she will be 25 at her birthday this year. And so she is the only one of my nieces and nephews that is not married. She's a sheriff deputy, and she's, you know, not as tall as her brothers, who are both like 6'5", but she's 6 feet. So my brother-in-law is pretty tall. So anyway, I am not finished yet with Aunt Mabel, who is me, Auntie Robin. And then finally, here's my dad, and there is a tabby cat button that goes with him. When I started this, my dad had a cat named Berlin, who was a giant, like 15-pound plus tabby cat. Berlin has passed away, and my dad now has a very skinny shelter cat named Tess, and I got a button that matches Tess, and so I'm going to have both cats here. And there's some other buttons too, and I got some like cardinal and blue jays to put in this, but I decided, I went to my first cross-stitch retreat in September, which was the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit, and I worked on this while I was at the Stitch Summit, and so people that I was stitching with were like, wow, there's a lot of empty space in this. Why don't you think about putting some trees? And then when I, pulled out, which I set down and now I don't know where it went, when I pulled out my sister's, snowscape and bare tree piece, I thought, great, I actually have patterns for the kind of trees that I want to put in that. So I don't know if she's going to get that back soon, but she'll get our other Christmas things back. And so this is One Snowman's Family. It is on like 18 or 20 count linen. I believe this is denim, but I mean, the store where I bought this went out of business long ago. I've stitched long enough that I've seen cross stitch have its moments, and like there was a there was a time in the 90s where cross stitch was kind of booming, and we had two shops in Salem, Oregon. We had at least one shop in Portland, Oregon that I didn't know about yet, and we had a shop in Corvallis, Oregon. That shop in Corvallis, Oregon, the person retired in 2018, and it was bought by, I believe it's Starlight Stitchery. For a while they kept the brick and mortar open, but they went fully virtual. I'm not sure when, 2020 or 2021. And so anyway, cross stitch was expanded, and I've seen it shrink, and now it's expanding again. And I go to Acorns and Threads, which is on the border between Portland and Beaverton and Raleigh Hills, and that's, like I say, in Portland area. I also go to Mindy's, which is a needlepoint shop, which has some cross stitch, like fabrics and floss. They used to have a lot more patterns for cross stitch. I haven't really seen patterns since the pandemic, but they also have books on embroidery, and I like to go in there just to see what she's got. And she also has a bunch of buttons too. So let's see. And so there's a new cross stitch that opened up in Bend, Oregon. And I will put down some of these addresses in the more section of the video. And there is also a new brick and mortar shop in Grants Pass, and this is exciting because some of us are thinking, ooh, road trip. So So I discovered a floss tube around, I think, February of 2022, and I was watching a lot of YouTube, kind of like it, you know, as the pandemic wore on. And so I, um, started watching floss tubes, and the first floss tubes that I watched were a lot of people from the Netherlands, and I really liked what they did. And I kind of think to myself, oops, I want to pull this out. Um, I kind of think, well, someday I'm going to do a heaven and earth design, because I'm not afraid. I'm not a really like a smalls person. That's why it takes me so long to finish things. This is something my mom made, which is a lined bag, and with a drawstring. And so I keep this gold collection petite, kitten reflections, and this is something I started stitching probably around 2006 or so. And because it's something that I want to do for me, that's as far as I have on it, which isn't that far. And I don't know how well you can see. I'm kind of inset in the corner. So that's kind of where I'm at, which is just the bottom of the lily pads. And I know I made a couple mistakes here, but if no one else knows about it, they're not going to tell. I mean, I stitch over mistakes. I rarely frog, unless I really have to, like it's a serious miscount. So that's one of my personal and older whips. Like say the Raspberry Patch stuff I started like around 2003, so it's 20 plus years old, 21 years old whip. This one is 17-year-old whip, or 18-year-old whip. So then I started something for my niece because she liked peacocks. So I started doing this Indian peacock, and it's also a dimensions kit. And so, I found another whip, and maybe I'll show that too. It's got a needle in it, so I gotta grab it in a certain way. So, oh yeah, there's the dragon too. So, anyway, the peacock's down at the bottom of this box. For the longest time, I've kept my pieces in plastic boxes, because if I was traveling, then I could have. That's as far as I've got with the peacock. Again, toward the bottom, started at the bottom, and a lot of times I'll start in the left-hand corner because I'm left-handed, and I think, well, maybe if I start at that corner, then my hand will move past, and I won't be, if I'm starting in the right hand, I don't know. I mean, I'm not right-handed, so that means if I'm like writing, it's like then my hand's going to go across the design multiple times. So I'm trying to do this sort of in a way that I think will cause the least amount of smudges on it. I won't pull out the dragon and castle because it's kind of too much to grab at the moment. But so one of the things that I've done, and I have created a pattern and gave as a design, but this is a piece that I started, and I don't even know if I have the pattern anymore. This is something I created with PC Stitch, and it is something based on a photograph that I did when I went to Greece. And so it's either that or a photograph I did when I went to Glamis Castle in Scotland. which is where Macbeth, the real Macbeth, lived. So anyway, so I do like creating my own patterns, but like I say, I normally don't create my own patterns for gifts, so I've only done that once. I had one of my nieces do the still life for that, and then I basically took a piece of graph paper and where she had sketched, I filled in the boxes with what stitches and colors I wanted. And so this is a piece that I really need to get done. I started back almost a year ago in March. And so this is Pansy Angel. It is from 1995. It's a Jan Lynn kit. I think I got it in a clearance bin, and that clearance bin is no longer at that shop since the pandemic. I should ask the store owner, like, whatever happened to all of our clearance cross stitch, and maybe like try and help her out in terms of like disposing of it. But so let me see if I can get this out, because the pattern is in this with the oh boy, this is going to be fun. I just don't want anything to get lost. So so you see the Pansy Angel, and then I am starting in that left-hand corner, and I've done some of the I've done the straight borders, and I've started to do some of the pansy border, and then my needle minder just grabbed metallic frame, or actually I think it grabbed the document camera base, and then so not too far, and unfortunately I kind of got waylaid because I had people having babies and getting married, so I didn't get much further on that. That's supposed to be a retirement gift, and my friend retired at the end of this year, so I can still get it to her eventually, and that's one of my projects to focus on this year, is that Pansy Angel. And being from 1995, it's full of confetti, but it's also like fractal stitches, and it's just like, oh gosh, so it's challenging. Oh, and the pattern, which I'm not going to show on camera, the pattern is really poorly printed, so it's really dark. It's not exactly smudgy, but it was not a great Xerox, let's just say that. And so let me grab my width list. So you saw the two oldest whips. You saw the Indian Peacock that I started for my niece. I started sometime between, I know I started it probably sometime between 2013 and 2018, probably somewhere like 2014 or 2015. I don't remember. So I don't remember when she got married, and she was married several years before she had her daughter, and her daughter is not yet in kindergarten. So yeah. So I started it before she was pregnant, before she had her daughter. So anyway, I think I mentioned I'm started when I started Flosstube, I started like seeing much more patterns and exciting things other people were doing, and getting to know more about designers, and So, so I've been spending a lot more money on cross stitch. And, you know, I had crafty friends at work. Then we all went home for the lockdown, and Oregon's lockdown was a little longer than everyone else's. And yes, we do have a lower death rate than most other states, and we do have quite a few people that still mask, including myself. And that's what we choose. So, let's see. I'm looking through the whips here. So, oh, so I showed you my finishes. I'm going to do one more of those towels with an Oregon grape, and then I am creating a design that is going to be a purple orchid, which is the state or the national flower of Costa Rica, because the husband of that married couple is from Costa Rica. And so they have a beautiful light purple orchid that is their national flower. And I think it's called the purple girl in English. And so that's one more thing I need to do. 2 people that I work with have had babies in the last month. And so I've got some baby things to do. And then somebody else came back from maternity leave, and I spoke to him yesterday, and they were like, yeah, I would take something, Robin. And I'm like, well, what would you like? And so they told me what they liked. And they also had their little girl on the screen, and it was so cute. And one of their pets too. So, yeah, so I have like quite a few things that I commit myself to do, and that's okay, because that's what I'm choosing to, give somebody a gift like that. And this We Santa, which is Heart and Hand Designs, or Needle Art, sorry. This We Santa, I think these flowers look like quilt blocks. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is so cute. And I thought, I want to do it, but I want to do it for my mom because these look like quilt blocks, these flowers. So I have started doing it. And I started doing it when I was at the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit. And then I realized it wasn't much fun to do at the Stitch Summit because this is a really small bore. I have a big piece of fabric here, but it's a small, because I figured I'll use the fabric for something. So I started doing the Santa, and I thought I was doing really good, and then I realized that I needed more space between the stems and the boot. Like I'd put the boot too close, or I'd left out one of the stems because I miscounted. And so like I haven't really worked on this since September, and probably won't work on it for a while, at least until I get some new glasses, because I got glasses when I was in my late 30s because I went to the eye doctor, and they said, well, you can have bifocals or you can put it off for a couple of years. And I was like, I'm stitching now. I better get bifocals so I can see the stitches. And I did that, and now I have trifocals, and trifocals, if you have good eyes, you are blessed, because trifocals suck. And I have vertigo when I go downstairs, and I'm going to have a big chat with my eye doctor, because my sister and my mom have a particular kind of vertigo, and I'm wondering if I have that too. They don't have trifocals, so neither of them. My sister's kind of upset because she's now saying, well, I need readers, or I need glasses that aren't just readers, and so she's dealing with that. But hey, the fact that she didn't need glasses for all this time, that's, that's much better. So, oh, hey, all right, let me see what I got in here. So, do I have... Ooh, yes. Okay, so this is another pattern that I'm working on. This is A House Without a Cat is a Garden Without Flowers, and this is A House Without a Cat from Imaginating, designed by Diane Authors. And so I got this during some grief cross-stitch spending because my cat of 16 plus years had passed from cancer, and so she was all gray, and she wasn't as rounded as this. She has had more of a like a Siamese body conformation, really long and lean. But so I might make this cat a little bit leaner if I can. But I have mixed the flosses so that the floss that I'm doing is not this pattern floss, but a blended tweeted floss, because that matches her real fur color. And so this is her memorial piece, and I have not done much with that. Oops, wrong bag. I started it in August of this last year because I went to a business meeting, and I knew I'd have some time in the hotel at night where I could just either read or do cross stitch. And so one night I started working on this. This is like, yeah, here it is, Summer Sky, Joblin, 28 count, and again, it's a big piece. So I have done, I started in the middle where all the gray is, so I figured that'd be easy to stitch because so you can see where I have crossed the thread and where I have not yet, where I've only done the half stitch. So anyway, so this is another piece for me, and you know, it could be 10 years before I get it finished. I hope not. And so the thing that has happened to me, I started watching Flosstube like in February 2022, and is it 2022? Yeah. And then I started thinking, I would love to do a Flosstube video, and so I decided to try to do that. And that was at our last house. We've lived in this one for a year now, and the last house had really crappy air conditioning that were window units, and so I did a video, and then you couldn't hear me talk because the air conditioner noise. And I was doing this in July, and then I tried doing the Flosstube in the kitchen, and the kitchen direct light shone down, and there was too much glare, and because I was trying to do with the document camera. And so I've had some stops and starts with this, and you know, but going on Flosstube, okay, first of all, I'm seeing a lot more, so I'm spending a lot more, which is not necessarily what all of you may be able to do. So you have to be a little cautious with your enabling and being enabled by your friends. But like you see, I mean, I do some things that are brand new, but I do a lot of things that aren't. And although this still might be on, I think it was on Everything Cross Stitch where I got it. And so yeah, so I started, you know, getting more familiar with more designers, getting more familiar with modern cross stitch and with different kinds of crafting. And I was really, really excited to go to the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit. I tried to go to the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit, but I would have been that was in 22, but I couldn't get, I got on the waiting list for the Zoom version and couldn't get in, and that was fine, you know. But the next when I you know, kind of became you know, it's not really a member or subscriber, but I mean, I signed up with Acorns and Threads, you know, so I have, like, you know, I'm a known customer there, and so, you know, signed up for their newsletter. So I was on my computer like right at like 8:58, when the signups were going to happen, and I had my credit card out and I had the website open, and as soon as 9 hit, I was typing my stuff in, and so I was able to go in person, and my cats were not happy with me leaving for the weekend, and they were really anxious. I mean, I just left them a month before for several days for this business work meeting. And so they were like, really like kind of wanting attention and kind of maybe anxious and kind of getting into some mischief. And so I basically did not get to leave as early in the morning as I wanted to, because I knew the ballroom doors opened, like I think at 9, and then the lunch and the Stitch Summit would start right at noon. And so I got there at like 11:45, and it was Janine at Acorns and Threads keeps the Stitch Summit a small number, which is great, because then you get a lot more. It's much more personal and personable, and you meet people. And so there was a table off to the side next to my friend who is moderating the Zoom session. And I looked at the table, and there was another person I knew from a Zoom Stitch group that I was invited to by meeting people at Acorns and Threads. And there were other seats empty at the table. So when the two designers showed up, that's where they sat. So all weekend long, I was stitching with a couple people I knew from Portland, one person from Portland I didn't know, and then somebody from Southern California that now I stitch with on a Zoom group. And then I got to meet Tracy, who's Ink Circles, and Jody, who's Satsuma Street, and it was great. Tracy, her grandparents lived in one of the towns in Oregon that I lived in, so we could kind of bond with, like, hey, we know this town and have very special memories of it. That's where her grandparents were, and she spent a lot of summers there. That's where my husband and I had when we first got married, where we lived. And Jody, who had been in LA and Southern California, had moved up to Southern Oregon. And I was kind of like, how did I not know you were there? Well, she had moved to Southern Oregon after I had left Southern Oregon. So she wasn't local when I was local there. But anyway, so got to, talk to people and build friendships with people I knew. And so we were there a whole weekend, and there was this guy that I had chatted with, during the breakfast one of the days. We were talking about college football, and so we were riding up and down the elevator, and there was another woman in the elevator with me, and the guy turns to the two of us and said, "Are you those cross-stitchers?" And we both were like, "Well, yes, we are." And so she said, "Well, yeah, I'm in such and such town." And I was like, "I live in, my town." And it was like, you're in the same county I am, and we're practically neighbors." And she's like, so anyway, as we answered the guy's question, and then we both left the elevator and went back to the ballroom to finish out the last day of stitching. And later, I went up to the table she was at, and she was with a group that actually took up 2 big tables. And I went to hand her my contact information because I didn't know any cross-stitchers near the town where I lived in. And it turns out there's a whole Salem area stitchers group, and they're on Facebook, and they're very active. They stitch once a week in person, and this mini retreat we had with the Acorn Gathering that happened on Sunday, they carpooled. Of course, I got there late again, and they felt bad because their table was full. But I was like, hey, I'm going to stitch right next to you with my Portland friends, because I met people in Portland through the shop and got invited to Zoom stitching with them. And then the Salem area stitchers, as soon as the summit ended, they called me up and they emailed me, and so I go stitch in person with them or I do Zoom with them. I'm a little further from Salem, and so it's not always convenient for me to drive to one of their houses, but that's a great group. And through getting to know the cross stitch community on Flosstube, and then going to my first retreat, this is how I got more involved and got stitchy friends for the first time in 25 years. I have stitchy friends. And so, and the thing about anything in life, whether it's cross stitch or whether it's your job or whether it's, being married or having a family, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And one thing that Flosstube does is it shows you some of the things you don't know. And there's a group called the Sable Stitchers, and Sable is an acronym that means stash accumulated beyond life expectancy. That's my husband's favorite cross stitch term. And I think I showed a picture. Let me get it on the phone again. This is the white craft dresser. Get right in front of the camera. Sorry, I have this inset, and I'm not sure whether it's actually showing. So yeah, so this is the white dresser. Okay, the top drawer, that's floss. The second drawer, that's fabric. The one below that is patterns, and the bottom one is kits and patterns and other crafting supplies. And now that dresser, because of Flosstube and going to shops, it's full. And so I got to do more cross stitch because I'm trying to do like Pam is from Just Keep Stitching is on a pattern diet or chart diet, and some of my friends in the Salem area stitchers are saying, yeah, I need to go on a chart diet too. Or I have a stash that's like 3 life expectancies. And I still have a stash that I don't think it's beyond my life expectancy, because with my genetics, I might live a longer time. Like my great-grandparents that live well beyond 100, I might be stitching that long. But I need to not get too much, and I don't want it to expand beyond the white dresser. And one of my stitchy friends told me the other day, oh, just get another dresser. And I'm like, no, I can't fit another piece of furniture in that room. That's where my science fiction and Star Trek collection is. So and it's also got a Murphy bed, and it's huge, and a desk where I do my remote work. So it's really full of furniture. Another desk. There's no room for another dresser. And so let me see if I had any other patterns. Yes. So this is what happened that was special on Sunday. The Acorns Gathering is a mini one-day retreat. It was from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Acorns and Threads in their annex classroom. And I can now show this, but I walked into the room, I saw my stitchy friends, I saw a spare seat, and people like going, hey Robin, come over and sit here, and it was great. And then I put my stuff down and I turned around to the big screen, and Brendan and Karen from Fox and Rabbit were on the big screen, and they gave us an exclusive design for our Acorn Gathering. And so I worked on this. I made a mistake, and I don't want to frog it, but I worked on the brick. So this is, actually it goes like that. It's the top of the house, the top bricks in the house, and then it goes going here, and then the windows are right here. here, and here. But I miscounted, okay? So I thought it started in the middle. I thought this corner was in the middle of the fabric, but it was not. Um, so I'm about 20 over. I think I have enough fabric that even if it's really close to the edge, I'll have enough to frame it. So anyway, so this is for me. And because it's a nice square, that'll be really good for stitching with friends, because what I've discovered with stitching with friends is when I talk, then I miscount. So I'm better being a solitary stitcher if I'm doing something super hard like the Pansy Angel. But there are pieces that, you know, and other people tell me this, when you're stitching with friends, there are pieces where if you're doing the middle of the cat and it's all one color, that's great for stitching with friends, because then you have less chance of miscounting. And like I say, A Gathering of Acorns, which was the pattern with Fox and Rabbit. But it was so exciting to turn around on that and see their faces on that screen, because I've seen them on Flosstube, and it was like, oh my gosh, international cross-stitch superstars, you know. And you know, but that's the thing about cross stitch too. If you're new to cross stitch, is that people in cross stitch are nice. And I have talked to designers, I've talked to like cross stitch celebrities in other countries, and they're all nice and they want to support you. And they, you know, and if you do your own designs, they want to support that too. So, you know, I never think that I'm going to ever be a cross stitch designer and make money, but I want to design my own pieces because I come from a family of artists and we create our own things. And and that was another thing that I wanted to do, that I figured out early when doing cross stitches. I want to create my own pieces and stitch them for myself. And so, you know, one day I will have that piece from Scotland or that piece from Santorini, and I can put it on my wall. And so anyway, I did an hour and a half, which was 13 minutes longer than I wanted to do, or that I did last time. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I had a giveaway for the last video that I was doing, but somehow I've put it away, so I will do that in my next Flosstube. And I have at least 9 Flosstubes planned with different themes. So, and I don't expect the Flosstubes to go this long, but I will put some Flosstubers that I watch. The 2 that I watch religiously is Just Keep Stitching with Pam and Steph, and I do watch Janet Japper. And I kind of wish I'm over on the West Coast, you know, near the Pacific Ocean, but I kind of wish sometimes I could just take a drive to the Midwest, because there's, you know, or Canada or the East Coast, because there's so many cross stitchers that are just great people that would be so much fun to sit down and stitch with. So anyway, support your local needle shops, and I will put a lot of addresses and links in my description. And thank you so much for joining me. No, probably not safe. Yeah, you be careful with the cross stitches. You're such a good girl. Now you're going to come over to the to the laptop. Yeah, her's a good girl. Okay, that's a good spot. As long as you don't get on the keyboard later. Watch out, that's kind of unstable. Whoa.